What the hell? I did not see that coming. Welcome to Ranger Reviews, a web series we look at episodes of the TV show Power Rangers and then discuss them. Today we're exploring the 28th episode of the show Power Rangers Turbo, as well as the 233rd episode overall, titled Fall of the Phantom. We begin this episode at Angel Grove High while Cassie is depressed, sitting on the stairs staring. She's thinking about the Phantom Ranger and all the times they've met. Cassie, stop. You don't even know him. Then Mr. Kaplan shows up. Where the hell has he been? He suggests that Cassie should be studying in the library, and he explains that Miss Appleby mentioned that she wanted to take a test at a later date, and that she's been very busy with other interests. But Mr. Kaplan tells her to take the test as scheduled, much to Cassie's frustration. On the space base, Metallosaurus has been rebuilt by Havoc. Then Elgar is getting yelled at by Divatox, who is going over all the different ways to kill the Phantom Ranger. Then Havoc shows up explaining that she just wants to get his Power Ruby. Didn't we already go over this? Why is Divatox acting like this is the first time she's heard about the Power Ruby? Havoc then says that getting the Power Ruby is impossible, but Divatox demands that he gets it anyway. At school, Ashley and Cassie are complaining about how they're never going to be ready for this test. Cassie goes to her locker and she finds a black envelope inside, and a piece of paper is inside as well, but it's blank. But then the ink appears, telling her to meet someone at the park. Signed, a friend. She assumes it's the Phantom Ranger leaving. She arrives at the park, seeing the Phantom Ranger behind a bush. She calls out to him and he comes out, but then it turns out he's actually Havoc, and some Piranhatrons and some Chromites. Uh-oh. Cassie goes for her communicator, but then some cheap vines attack her. She can't move and Havoc comes over, taunting her. How did he know which locker was hers? They teleport away with her. At the youth center, Bulk and Skull are trying to convince the other Rangers to dress up as clearance rack Power Rangers for their monster tours. I guess this monster tour is a thing now. They then explain that Justin can't actually do it because he's way too small to be a Power Ranger. TJ declines because they have to study for the test. They leave. Ashley asks where Cassie is at, and they're confused because Cassie isn't usually this late. In the power chamber, they're with Alpha and they can't track down Cassie. Alpha then gets a signal, putting it up on the screen. It's Havoc, who shows that Cassie is his prisoner and he's going to use some alien dust to turn her into stone forever. TJ asks what he wants, and Havoc explains that he wants to exchange her for the Phantom Ranger, and Ashley explains they can't even do that if they want to, but Havoc thinks that they've been holding out on them. Havoc explains he can probably hear this message already, and Havoc logs out. Justin gets a lock on them, saying that they're in another dimension. Demetria tells them to be careful because that was way too easy, and as Alpha explains that they should just do some more tests, they just shift into Turbo. Rygog and Elgar are by Cassie, explaining how they have 2 more minutes to wait for the Phantom, but then the other Rangers show up, fighting off Piranhatrons, and Rygog gets ready to start pouring some of that alien dust on Cassie. Carlos gets to Cassie, trying to wake her up and untie her, but nothing is working. Rygog then tosses the dust to Elgar, and TJ tries to get it back, but it drops onto the ground. Now the Piranhatrons kick it around, and Rygog gets it, dusting Cassie with the stuff, saying he's going to harden her arteries permanently. Cassie is now stone, and all the bad guys teleport away. The Rangers run over, and they're pretty pissed that they actually just let this happen. Then the Phantom Ranger shows up, and where the fuck you been? He's upset that he's too late, but maybe he shouldn't have stopped at Starbucks on the way over. He explains that he needs to use his Power Ruby, so he takes the cheap plastic out of his chest, holding it to the Stone Cold Steve Cassie, and it actually works, turning Cassie back. And then Cassie grabs the Phantom Ranger, and Cassie's actually Havoc. What the hell? I did not see that coming. They teleport out. In the power chamber, they regroup, explain that Divatox wants the Power Ruby, and they can't even tell if it's on the space base because they're blocked out. They have to start searching manually. In a cave, Divatox is excited about how she now has 2 Rangers, a communicator, and the Power Ruby. Cassie is with Phantom, being held back by the villains. Divatox takes this time to explain that she hates the Phantom Ranger, going for his helmet to reveal his identity, but of course this is when Cassie gets free, distracting them. Phantom hits her communicator to her from Divatox, and Cassie has to take the opportunity to teleport out, saying that she'll be back. Havoc comes to Divatox, who is pissed off. She tells him to put the Phantom Ranger back in his cage, and then tells him to go teach the Rangers some respect. Cassie then crash lands on Earth, which is a really cool way to teleport in. Bulk and Skull are nearby with their tour, and they say that they've actually seen a monster, but then they actually just see their bootleg Power Rangers, one of which has a cane. This is actually pretty funny. The group says that this is a scam, and Bulk points out the very real Metallosaurus, so everyone runs away. Alpha gets a signal, so he teleports the other Rangers out of there. They don't see the giant robot dragon in the city. They arrive in the park, finding Cassie, who is still worried about the Phantom Ranger. Then Havoc appears, so shift into Turbo. The Rangers see that Metallosaurus is back, and Havoc gets inside, firing at them, blowing them up pretty good. Rescue Zord power. They get into their Rescue Zords, doing some individual Zord fights before they realize that there's actually a cage in Metallosaurus' hand. It's the Phantom Ranger, and Havoc tells them to come at him. The Rangers then use high stance modes, which turns all the Zords into humanoid robots. Not gonna lie, these are cool. TJ goes first to get the Phantom Ranger, and he does, placing the cage down onto the ground. Cassie gets out of her Zord, using her Auto Blaster to free him from the cage. Cassie's Zord just walking around still. Phantom tells him to initiate the rescue Megazord. The robots all pose and are not listening to Phantom Ranger, just fighting against the Metallosaurus individually. Come on guys, get it together. This is also a weird fight because no one is talking. Then Justin gets hit back into his car form for a second before he comes back as a robot kicking Metallosaurus. Carlos also converts back to avoid Metallosaurus. I actually don't mind this sort of fight. TJ turns back into a car, then gets back into a robot again, getting a bomb. They then toss it at Metallosaurus, hitting him. Finally, the Rangers decide to come together as the new rescue Megazord. Then their base where all their Zords stay come with some huge ass cannons, which they then just fire at Metallosaurus, and Havoc yells while it goes down, exploding. So did they just kill Divatox's brother? The Rangers show up to get the Phantom Ranger, but he's gone. They have to focus on the Power Rubies, so they leave. Also, Havoc is apparently alive on the space base, and he tells Divatox he'll be back with a new Metallosaurus at some point. Later. Divatox then says that she has a plan for what to do with the Power Ruby. In the park, Cassie, TJ, and Ashley are walking together, talking about how tough that test was. Then their communicators go off, and Alpha says that he still hasn't found the Phantom Ranger. Thanks for that awesome update, Alpha. Underground, the Phantom Ranger is talking to himself, logging his fading condition, and how he can't live without his Power Ruby. Soon, he will be gone forever. To be continued. This episode's pretty good, but wow, if you don't like Megazord battles like me, good luck enjoying the second half of this episode at all, because that's all it is. Honestly, it was pretty underwhelming as a new Megazord debut, but I couldn't tell you what they could have done or should have done differently because all that stuff is pretty boring to me. It's frustrating to see how much they're actually doing with the Phantom Ranger because, again, we never find out who he is. So for us to be teased with who he might be under the mask is really, really dumb. I actually wish they had just said that he doesn't have a face and that is his face at this point. Or try to take off the mask and there's nothing. Next time we'll see something that hasn't been done too often in Power Rangers, but until then may the power protect you.